interesting day because it kind of went back and forth a little bit as we had the passing game for the Bills offense clicking early in the opening session, but then the defense came back roaring with takeaways at the end of the practice. So it was kind of a back and forth type of session. I think a lot of people felt day one, Maddie, and by the way, welcome in. Good to see you.
Happy to be here.
And day one, I think most people would give to the offense. Day two yesterday seemed like more people wanted to hand it to the defense. And today it kind of went flip-flop back and forth through the course of the day.
It was only a matter of time until the defense really stood out in a team period. Yesterday, we saw a takeaway out of the defense, their first of training camp, and today we saw multiple takeaways toward the end of practice. So it's always great seeing those guys get involved in things, and it'll be interesting to see what happens when the pads go on, because that's really the true test of all of this. Right now, they've got hats and T-shirts on, and you're playing, but you don't have the pads on yet. So I'm excited to see who starts to win more practices once the pads come on.
Pads go on Monday.
Right.
Monday the pads will go on.
Yeah, no question about it. That we tend to read too much into it. I mean, it's the first couple of days of training camp. Nobody's really hitting. It's not real football. It's more learning environment. But I will notice this, that it's been a wide swings in momentum. The first day was all offense. The second day, the defense played really well, and today was both. The offense was smoking hot at the beginning of practice, and then the defense, like 3 straight plays where they were interception. They really played a lot better, and we even noticed on one-on-ones where the defense was starting to find its legs, the pass rushers and stuff, and we said it earlier in the week. Offensive guys can go out and they can throw whole route combinations against air. They can go out and throw it, get their timing down, do all that. Defenders, they don't ever get to do that.
Yep.
Because you
can't defend air.
You can't defend air, right? Yeah. So
it takes a little time.
But with every passing day and every passing practice, the defense is getting a little bit more comfortable, a little more familiar with each other. The communication's getting better. And in short order, they're going to do more than hold their own like they did today.
I will say that first opening passing session, which was in the red area for the most part, I think they were at the 30-yard line.
It was in the defensive end of the field.
They were at the 30-yard line going in 11 on 11. And we talked to Josh yesterday on the show, Maddie, and he was talking about all these clear-out routes that Joe Brady has incorporated even more heavily into the offense to set up guys running wide open. And you saw it in that first series of practice. I mean, Dawson Knox, there isn't a player around him for 10 yards all the way around him because 2 guys ran the clear out over the top of him, and he's sitting underneath in that pocket. Khalil Shakir ran a rub route with Keon Coleman, and Shakir is down the chute, down the sideline, wide open. Steve, I know you saw that because he ran right by us for a touchdown. After hearing Josh yesterday, Maddie, and then seeing this today, I don't know about you, but I'm very encouraged about the scheming that Joe Brady's going to do for this offense this year.
Yeah, and Joe Brady talked about Josh Allen as a quarterback and as a player on this team taking more onus of everything, taking more ownership of how I go about my job, of how I interact with these new players around me. He went into the meeting room, Joe Brady did, describing Josh this year is different in that he knows there are new players on this team who he has to create chemistry with, and instead of being like, hey, I'm going to throw it here and this guy is going to go over here and catch the ball, Josh Allen is more or less taking guys through things. This is what's going through my mind on this play. This is where my feet are. This is where I think you should be. And let's converse. Let's have a conversation about how this is going to play out on the practice field as we saw today. And our offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, also went through, I want Josh to be able to go through these progressions and have an understanding of how things are unfolding. We saw that last season, but this season maybe he takes that a step forward just in the knowledge part of the game.
Yeah, but Steve, we talked about this the other day. If you're not going to have an alpha male number 1 wide receiver, you're going to need your coordinator to help scheme guys open to kind of facilitate and make up for that kind of a loss of a true one-on-one winner. No matter what the defensive coverage is. And the early signs are encouraging here with what Brady's putting on the field.
I was just going to say that whatever atmosphere they've got going on in their offensive team meeting room, it's productive. I mean, you've got a ton of guys being really productive. We saw this, too, in the offseason. They brought in a bunch of guys that catch the ball really well.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds crazy, but no, these guys have a high catch radius. Kincaid catches everything. Shakir catches everything. Curtis Samuel has great hands. These guys really catch the ball well, even on rough throws and in traffic, and we've seen that. And whatever atmosphere and whatever play calling that they're doing in the installation period, I mean, they're not doing any game planning against the defense and, all that stuff that goes into the nuances of the regular season. They're just kind of installing their offense. Man, oh man, they look effective.
Yeah.
I mean, they really do. Everybody seems to be clicking. Even the offensive line. We'll talk to Daquan Jones. We cut some sound with him earlier. He talked about even the offensive line seems to be greased lightning right now. They really seem to be communicating well, and it shows.
It's not like they're going out there with the same 11 guys on offense. They're mixing and matching where wide receivers are lining up, and I think that speaks to what we're going to see this season. Joe Brady went into depth about how we don't have positions for our wide receivers. We are teaching 2-man concepts, 3-man concepts. It was all conceptual when we were teaching this offense to our receivers. Keon Coleman spoke about that today too and seemed really excited about the fact that I'm not just going to be an X in this offense. My job is going to be a lot wider than just one role.
One guy who we saw getting an awful lot more reps with the ones was Cole Bishop today. He got sprinkled in late in practice yesterday with the starting unit. Today, he was there almost from start to finish. Interesting development here early in camp.
Yeah. He was they're running some different kind of defensive looks in the backfield. You see a lot of guys, particularly, and I think this is indicative of every training camp where they're, like I said yesterday, they're experimenting a little bit with who can do what.
They do some mixing and matching with the ones and the twos.
But
yes.
You're right. Bishop showed up today with the number one crew, and that's always a good thing for a young player to feel like, okay, it's a little bit of a carrot for him.
Yeah,
and
confidence boost.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of a validation of how he's working, at least.
Yeah.
Same thing with the young guys, and Maddie mentioned a minute ago on the offensive side, everybody's playing with everybody, and they're lining up everywhere.
Yeah.
And different combinations where, you got Kincaid and Knox standing beside each other, and there ain't neither one of them's in.
Yeah.
So and the combinations of personnel with the running backs, the receivers, and the tight ends, there's no lid on it. They're trying everything.
So, Maddie, I wanted your thoughts on the run game.
Right.
Through the first 3 days, it has looked pretty consistent, but maybe just talk about the backs, because we've heard going into camp and even early in camp about how versatile the receivers are. I think what's gotten lost is how versatile these running backs are going to be in this offense. And I'm talking beyond James Cook.
Yeah. It's been fun to watch these running backs in the first few days of practice, and I think we've really seen a lot from them in practice number 2 and practice number 3. And it's not just James Cook, like you said. It's Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, even Frank Gore Jr. getting involved in things. And Joe Brady, when he was asked of, hey, what have you seen out of this running backs group? What do you want out of the guys behind James Cook? Joe Brady wasn't ready to answer that question yet, because he said, for me, with the running backs, it's really going to start to come together when they put pads on. He said it's hard to tell right now when we just have hats and T-shirts on, so I really am excited to see how we work our technique with our pads on. But Ray Davis and Ty Johnson yesterday, I think, stood out amongst the running backs. They both had some nice gains, nice cuts, thanks to the vision that they both have. Frank Gore Jr. has popped off a couple of nice runs as well. James Cook had a nice catch in one-on-one drills from Josh Allen. It was a deep ball thrown by Allen. I can't remember who was guarding James Cook when they were doing one-on-one period toward the end of practice. But we saw how this team finished last season as being a not run heavy, but the rushing yards that they put up in the back half of the season were quite a lot. James Cook finished with the 4th most rushing yards in the NFL, and we're seeing that be we're seeing that put into practice right now. We're seeing James and Ty and Ray being used early and often, and I think that says a lot about what could be for this offense this upcoming season. We know what Joe Brady thinks about using running backs and how valuable that could be to the team. It's been nice to see these 3 guys used right away.
Yeah, and I think it's been consistent no matter which back has been in there, and in some cases which line has been in there. I mean, the starting O-line looks solid. I think the McGovern move to center and then Edwards to guard. I mean, the starting unit doesn't look like they've missed a beat. And then even the second unit, while they're not as airtight as that first group, I think there's some promise there, and you're already seeing some progress. A guy who's kind of caught my eye through the first few days is Tylen Grable, the draft pick. They've got him playing a lot of tackle here early in camp, and you can see right away the athletic skill set he brings to the table. He had a rep in one-on-ones that Steve and I both witnessed where he got beat off the snap but recovered and held the rep to a stalemate. He didn't lose it. And half the battle sometimes is, even when your technique is not perfect, can you keep that guy off your quarterback? And he did that. So, I don't know. There's just some signs from Grable that are encouraging, and he's still a guy that's young at that position. Remember draft night, Maddie, they were talking about how he was a quarterback in high school, and now he's a tackle.
Yeah, and he's an enormous tackle. He's got the athleticism to do it. It doesn't look like his second sport. You know what I mean? He doesn't look like he just started, which says a lot about his athleticism. The guy's 6'8", weighs way over 3 bills. He stands. He looks the part. And and he's going against. I mean, he's taking reps against everybody. So he's more than holding his own, in my opinion. So I think that's pretty promising as well.
They're going to have good depth at that offensive line position. And Tasker, I looked at you during the first practice. Speaking of Connor McGovern moving over to center and David Edwards kicking in, I looked at you and I was like, are we overlooking this? Is this a bigger deal? Do we need to make it a bigger deal? And you looked at me, you said, Connor's going to be fine. David's going to be fine. Yeah. And you just spoke about what you've seen in the first 3 days and that it's looked like a well-oiled machine out of that group.
Okay, so everybody has an opinion on how Milano has looked to them through the first 3 days. How has he looked to you?
I think he's a guy who we know what Matt Milano can do for this defense, and I wanted to ask Bobby Babich this question today but didn't get the chance to. I wonder how you approach a player like Matt Milano and him getting on the field and getting back to looking like himself. Bobby Babich, our defensive coordinator, said it's only a matter of time until Matt Milano looks like Matt Milano. But with that, I'm sure you have to temper expectations a little bit because he is such a tough player. He loves the game. He spent the entire offseason here making sure he was ready to go for training camp. He's probably somebody who just wants to be shot out of a cannon and participating, making plays, making a difference right away. That's obviously not going to be the case for somebody who is off the field for like 10 months. You have to ease your way back into it. And I'm sure there's got to be some conversations going around on whether it's with his teammates, coaching staff, training staff, maybe everyone about, I got to walk into this. I can't run into this. So it's been nice to see him lining up right there with Terrell Bernard. That chemistry between the two of those guys, I'm excited to see what's going to happen this season when he really starts to put some plays on tape. Because right now it's just, okay, how does a leg feel? If I cut this way, how does it feel? I'm getting back into football shape.
Yeah, you got to remember too. I mean, so Milano, we all know he's playing at the highest level, in the highest sport, the highest level of his sport, and even elite guys like the elite fighter pilots. If you do it and you're good at it and you're razor sharp, like when he got hurt, he was on it, man. He
destroyed the Dolphins
right?
in that
So
Week 4 game.
So that's where he's at. That's where he was at. Well, and now he's got 10 months and he hasn't done anything, nothing. And the best guys will tell you got to do it every day. So he's gone 10 months without it. And now he's just getting back into it. And even now, there's no pads. None of that stuff's going on. It's going to take him some time to get razor sharp again.
That's why
even if he's 100% physically healthy, which he probably is, but he didn't practice last off. He didn't practice. He didn't run. He's been way away as far as he could be away from it. He's been away from it. So he's going
very
to take a minute.
curious as to how they're going to handle him in the preseason because, as we know, over the last few years, veterans and entrenched starters play less and less and less in the preseason. This is a little bit of a different scenario. To your point, he hasn't worn pads in 10 months, played in a game. There are mental hurdles to clear, to Maddie's point. So I wonder if they leave it up to him. Hey, do you want to play in the preseason? Do you have a hurdle you got to clear where you just got to take a couple of hits in a real live game setting to feel good and confident so you're not thinking about your leg anymore. You're just thinking about playing. And they may leave it up to him to make that decision as to, give me 2 series this week, or whatever the case might be. I think that's a question we got to ask Coach McDermott to see what that plan is going forward, because it might give us a peek into what kind of mental hurdles he still has to clear.
My guess would be he has a voice in that process.
Yes.
But also do the coaches, obviously, and all that, but
medical
also
staff.
The coaches' goals for the roster and the sports science people. His rehab people.
I do think it says a lot about him not being held back in the first 3 practices. We heard from Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane the first day, and they said this is as good as it can get for Matt Milano. This is where our hopes were, is that he would be practicing on the first day of training camp without being held back. That's the case, but there are some guys where we may have to hold them back a little bit as they get into things. I would assume Matt Milano was a part of that group when he was speaking about it. And the fact that he's been out here the first 3 days and has not had a red shirt on, has not had to be held out of drills or anything, says quite a bit about where he is at physically.
Yeah, and I think we're all waiting to see if that changes once the pads go on next week, and maybe that changes his daily regimen. The other guy that people wonder about is Von Miller. I don't know where you guys stand, so I will put it to you. What have you made of his burst off the edge? I will just tell you that in the last 2 days I have noticed him, and he seems more sudden than he did in any game last year. Again, he's not carrying pads and everything that he's going to wear on a game day. Factor that in if you want. But I've noticed that he has given offensive tackles trouble. He was giving Spencer Brown problems today.
Yeah, he had almost a would-be sack against when he was repping against Spencer Brown today. And he spoke to the media yesterday, and he said, the difference now is I'm not thinking about my knee out there. The knee issues are not going through my brain when I'm going up against an offensive lineman or when we're in team period. I'm just playing. And the mental load that leaves you when you don't have to think about that every single down, every single play, I think is doing a lot for Von Miller right now. And hopefully that results in him getting back to what we know Von Miller can be and what we saw out of Von Miller in that first season as a Buffalo Bill.
I'm still confident that he's going to come back and play exactly like he did before he left. And, he was – I don't know if he's going to get a 15 sacks, have a double-digit sack year or whatever. I do know that he's going to be a solid defensive end on this team, and he's going to go in there in some spots where they need a big play. His mentality and his experience are going to carry him through some tough times, but – like they already have, I think he's going to really be a contributor this year. I think he's got some football left in him.
And he's going to be in a similar boat concerning preseason. Like, they'll probably leave it up to him again. Like, do you want to get some snaps? Do you feel you need to get yourself ready for the regular season? It might be different for him because he played almost. Yeah, I mean, he played in the last, 13 games of the season. He missed the first 4 weeks.
It might be that he would rather have some 1st and 10 plays in the preseason rather than just some pass rush plays.
Perhaps.
So he can get some contact and some bearing up against the run kind of thing. But I don't know. I can't speak for him. But there is a thought process there that would say, I want to do some other stuff before we get into this, see if I can actually handle the 1st and 10 stuff if they want to use me that way. And maybe he does need that mental hurdle to get over after having a long off season. But you're right. I mean, this is just another off season for him. He was rehabbing and training, not like last off season when it was total rehab. I think he's in a much different mental place this preseason.
All right, Maddie. So anything that you're working on for BuffaloBills.com that we need to alert our listening audience to?
We've got a practice report going out today. I'm not on that. Alec White and Dorian Alert are on that today. But coming in the next few weeks, we are going to do our position group features again, which we do every training camp, where we get to kind of learn about some of these new faces within the position groups, try and have some fun with these guys, try and get them to let loose a little bit, get to know them. So we'll be filming those starting next week, I think, after the walkthroughs, which is always a fun time getting to know the guys.
Yes, and in case you don't know, when the preseason broadcasts hit the airwaves, Steve Tasker and Andrew Catalan are going to be joined by Maddie on the sideline.
Yeah,
she will be the sideline reporter for the preseason
wait.
TV game. So look for Maddie down on the sidelines during the games. That'll be great.
And congratulations to you too, Brian.
Yes,
I haven't told you on the air yet, but
appreciate that.
Heck
but
yeah! Look at the
exciting
three of
times.
us, guys.
Look at us.
Look at us.
So
killing it.
So she was on vacation, and she still sent me a text to congratulate me, and I texted her back and I said, "You kill it on the sidelines, and I'll kill it in the booth." So that's what we'll try to do for our listening and viewing audiences going forward here. But thanks for checking in with us. I'm sure we'll have you check in at least one more time, maybe two more times before camp breaks for the updates and for all of Maddie's work and Alec's work. Just check BuffaloBills.com. They have wrap-ups on every day of practice in every minute detail that you could possibly imagine or need.